When we think about getting good with money, our minds immediately jump to spreadsheets, complex charts, maybe some heavy-duty market analysis. But what if I told you the single most important factor has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave? Let's dive into the hidden psychology behind wealth, because understanding it can honestly change everything.
So, let me ask you this. What do you think it is, the single most powerful financial skill? Is it being able to pick the next big stock? Or maybe it's understanding complicated economic cycles? Gotta be something genius level, right?
Well, it's none of those. The core idea in Morgan Housel's brilliant book, Our Source Material for Today, is that doing well with money is actually a soft skill. It's way more about your psychology and your behavior than it is about your raw intellect. And that leads us to this fascinating paradox that really gets to the heart of the whole thing. How is it possible that someone with zero financial training, a janitor, can end up wealthier than a top Wall Street executive who has every single advantage?
It all boils down to this. You can be an absolute genius, but if you don't have control over your emotions, you can be a complete financial disaster. But an ordinary person with just a few key behavioral skills, think patience, humility, they can become incredibly wealthy. And nothing illustrates this better than a couple of real-life stories.
So let's meet Ronald Reed. By all accounts, this guy's life was incredibly humble. He fixed cars, he swept floors, he lived in the same small house his whole life, a house he bought for just $12,000.
So, what was his big secret? Did he win the lottery? Get a huge inheritance? Nope. It was almost unbelievably simple. He saved what little he could, he bought shares in stable, well-known companies, and then he just waited for a very, very long time.
When Ronald Reed passed away at the age of 92, this humble janitor, a man no one on Wall Street had ever heard of, left behind an estate worth $8 million. Most of which, by the way, he just gave away to his local hospital and library.
Now, on the flip side of that coin, you have Richard Fuscone. He had everything Ronald Reed didn't: a Harvard MBA, a high-flying career at Merrill Lynch, you name it. But he was greedy. He borrowed huge sums of money to live this incredibly lavish lifestyle, and when the 2008 financial crisis hit, all that intelligence couldn't save him. He went completely bankrupt. So how in the world can two people make such wildly different decisions? Well, the book argues something pretty profound. When it comes to money, no one is crazy. The decisions you make seem perfectly rational to you because they're based entirely on your own unique and very limited view of the world. I mean, think about this for a second. The tiny, tiny sliver of reality that you've personally experienced makes up maybe a microscopic percentage of what's ever happened, and yet it accounts for something like 80% of how you think the entire world works. And these charts just bring this idea to life. So look, on the left, if you were born in 1970, the stock market went up 10 times over during your teens and 20s. You'd probably think stocks are an amazing way to build wealth. But now look at the chart on the right. If you were born in 1950, the market basically went nowhere for you at that same age. You'd be way more skeptical, right? Neither person is crazy. They're just a product of their own time. This idea that we're all just products of our own little slice of history, well, it sets us up for another huge trap, the dangerous game of social comparison, where the goalpost for what's enough is just always moving. Just take the unbelievable story of Rajat Gupta. He was born into poverty in Kolkata, orphaned as a teenager. He rises up to become the CEO of McKinsey, the most prestigious consulting firm on the planet. He's working with Bill Gates, advising the UN. This guy reached the absolute pinnacle. By 2008, his net worth was a staggering $100 million. That is enough money to do literally anything you could ever dream of. But for him, it wasn't enough.
See, he wanted to be a billionaire, so he got involved in an insider trading scheme, feeding illegal tips to a hedge fund manager. He ended up in prison, his reputation completely destroyed. He risked everything he had and needed for something he absolutely did not have and did not need.
This reminds me of a perfect story. The author Joseph Heller was at a party, and his friend Kurt Vonnegut pointed out that their billionaire host made more money in a single day than Heller's famous novel Catch-22 had made in its entire history. And Heller's reply was just perfect. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." So what's the antidote to this endless, dangerous cycle of always wanting more? It's a surprisingly simple idea, but it's powerful. It's survival. Because getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two completely different skills.
We all know Warren Buffett, right? The ultimate investing genius. And yeah, he's a brilliant investor. But his real superpower, it's not just his skill, it's his longevity. The guy started seriously investing when he was 10 years old. His secret isn't just about picking winners, it's about time.
All right, now look at this number, 99.9%. Let that sink in. What on earth could that possibly represent in the world of finance?
That's how much of Warren Buffett's wealth would just, poof, vanish if he had a normal career, if he'd started investing at 30 and retired at 60. Instead of having over $80 billion, he'd have about $12 million. His real mind-blowing success comes from just staying in the game long enough for the magic of compounding to do its work.
Which brings us to the final, and I think the most important lesson of all. If the goal isn't just more, then what is it for? Well, the highest form of wealth, the absolute best dividend that money pays, is freedom. There was this psychologist, Angus Campbell, who studied what makes people happy. And you know what he found? It wasn't your salary or the size of your house or how prestigious your job was. The single most powerful common denominator for happiness was having a strong sense of control over your own life. And that right there is money's greatest power. It's not about buying more fancy stuff. It's about buying autonomy. The ability to wake up one morning and say, you know what, I can do whatever I want today. That control over your time, that is the ultimate prize. So as we wrap up, I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. The most important question isn't about how to get more money, but asking yourself, what is it truly for? And maybe, just maybe, the best answer has a lot less to do with wealth and a whole lot more to do with freedom.